Hi, my name is Layla, and today I will be sharing my testimony. I want to mention that I actually gave my life to God 2 years ago, August 2019 to be exact, and right away I wanted to share it with the world. I wanted to tell everybody all the amazing things God had done in my life, but I knew it wasn't time. I knew there were a lot of things that God needed to work in me. There were a lot of things that I needed to learn, unlearn. So I just wanted to first go through the process of cleaning out my own life so that if I ever come on any platform and speak on God, I make sure that my own life matches the things I speak of. Quick warning, this is going to be a bit of a long video because I have a few things to cover. In order to understand why I gave my life to God, you must understand me, my life. Well, a little bit of it. I'm not going to go too much into detail, but I will mention the important details that, shaped me and made me the woman that I am today. So let's get right into it. So I was born in Congo, and I was raised in Rwanda and Congo, so I kind of went back and forth in between those two countries. My mother had me when she was 16, turning 17. I lived with her from the time that I was born till the age of, I think, 4 or 5. My father wasn't present at that time, and around that same time, my mom decided to go back to school, and my father reassured her that he would take care of me, which he tried for a couple of months, and then he took me to a relative's place, and then after that he came to get me again, and then took me to a boarding school. When I got to the boarding school, first, before I even get into the boarding school, I have to mention that I didn't know that I was going to a boarding school. I just had my stuff packed and went in this car, in this van, and and then I found myself at a boarding school. And at the time, I was probably the youngest person there, if not the youngest person. And when I got there, it was a very traumatic experience for me because I wasn't used to anything. I wasn't used to the food. I wasn't used to the lifestyle. I wasn't used to any of it. It was in the middle of nowhere, and I was alone and I was scared. And at that time, my mom didn't even know I was there. So when I was there, I got really, really sick, and my mom actually told me later on that I had malaria. So I got very sick, and I just remember at that young age looking into a mirror and just seeing my eyes really puffed up. I was so scared. I was really weak. I had no strength at all to walk, to move, to do anything. And I just want to take a little minute. And I remember 6th graders. I'll never forget it because they seemed so much older at the time, after class, because I wasn't able to go to classes. I was still very young. They would come after class and put a little towel on my forehead and take care of me just to make sure I was okay. And the reason why I'm mentioning this experience is because it really shaped the way I viewed my father, and it also shaped the way I viewed men in general, and it impacted the course of my life. But I didn't know that growing up. I just thought that I had forgotten about it, and I didn't care, but really I did. After that, my mom actually found out that I was there and that I was very sick, and she came and she got me out of there. And I spent a really long time in the hospital, and my mom told me that I actually asked her, I was like, Mom, tell me that you're never gonna leave again. And she was like, I promise, I'm never gonna leave. And she was right. We've been together ever since. We are like besties. So after that happened, we moved to another country, my mother and I, and that was probably one of the best times in my childhood. I had a great time. She tried to give me as much as she could with what she had. And it was just an amazing time in my life. Around 8 years old, me, my great grandmother, and my aunt, and my mom, and my 2 cousins moved to Ethiopia, and we were refugees there. And around that time is when I really started to understand the concept of God. My great grandmother and my aunt were 2 incredible women of faith. They loved God, and they loved to talk about God, and they loved to talk about the Bible. And my aunt loved explaining to us the different stories of the Bible and making us sing gospel songs. So that's when I started to really understand the concept of a God and a higher power. So after that, we moved to Canada, and this is really where a lot starts for me, because I moved to Canada when I was 11, turning 12, and it was not at all what I expected. If you're African, you know that anytime you hear that someone's going to Canada, or going to Europe or America, at the time it was such a big deal, because you're like, oh my gosh, you made it. So I was really excited, but when I got to Canada, the realities were completely different, because I felt out of place. I went straight to an elementary school that was predominantly white. I think we were maybe about like 4 black kids. And the reason why I'm mentioning race is because it really impacted me and really played with my self-esteem. I started to notice that I looked nothing like the other little girls in my class. My body had developed early on, and this made me feel really insecure, and it made me feel different. It made me feel very different, and it was something that I was very insecure about. So around that same time, my mom was working full-time, just being a single mom, doing everything she can to make sure that we had everything we needed. And every day after school, I would go and watch television, and I really got into reality television, and I got into, music video vixens. Like, that was my escape, because it was one of the first time I saw, women that looked like me and had the same body as me, and they were embracing it, and they were, doing whatever they wanted, and just very confident. And I was like, oh my goodness, like, I want to be just like that. And I started to take on all the personas that I saw on TV, and everything that they would do, I would do. Everything they would say, I would say. So I started to just act like that, and I thought I was in my own reality show. And that's when I started to really act out with my mom. We started to have our fights around that time, because I was being stubborn. I wasn't really listening to what she was saying. I wanted to do things my way. And so around that time, like I said, I really started to act out. And then came high school. Whew, I need to take a minute for this one. High school is probably, in my opinion, one of the hardest steps in life. And I'm not being dramatic, maybe a little, but I really believe that high school is difficult. Kids are mean, they're ruthless, kids have no filter, they will bully you, they will say whatever they want to say about you. And I learned early on that I needed to have tough skin if I wanted to make it out of high school. So I definitely created this fake confidence, that's what I call it, because it wasn't real. I acted like I was really proud of who I was, and I was so confident, and I felt good about myself, when really, like, I was just an insecure little girl that was crying for love, crying for attention, and seeking validation, getting into friendships that meant no good for me, and being around people who really probably did not really like me, but because I wanted to rally to have friends, I would do whatever they needed me to do. Like, I would I had no personality, to be honest, at the time. I just went with whatever, if it was cool, I was with it. The only thing that really kept me sane was the fact that I had grew up in Africa, so I had those values. I knew that there are certain things I couldn't do, there are certain ways that I couldn't go, but it didn't mean I wasn't gonna pretend like I was about it. So around that time, I would go to church with my mom every Sunday, but there was no connection to God, in my opinion. It was just like you go to church and then, you know, the service, they tell you you're gonna get a new house and you're like, woo! And then, you know, you go back home and the realities of life are still there, and me and my mom was still fighting, and I was still, you know, not really knowing my place as a child. And because we weren't so far apart in age, I kind of saw her as a friend more than I did a mother, which very bad, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how much of a difference it is, you know, your parents are still your parents. So yeah, like high school was for me just a place where I started to get, you know, attention from boys, because at the time that I was in elementary school, you know, I didn't really like my body, but all of a sudden, like, I was getting attention for that same body. So I was like, oh, like, this is what people see when they see me. Like, this is kind of like all that I'm good for, is like the shape of my body. So I really started to accentuate that. I was dressing provocatively, and I was, you know, like, if I saw something on TV and I thought it was cool, I would wear it. I would do the same things, but I didn't know the type of, you know, image that I was creating for myself. And to be honest, I really didn't care. As long as it got me the validation that I wanted at the time, that's really all that mattered. So around high school, like I'd say 10th grade, my great grandmother passed away, and right after that, my aunt passed away, and they were the two people that were keeping the family together, keeping us, you know, keeping the faith, helping us keep the faith. And so when they passed away, like, things just kind of went downhill from there. And yeah, around that same time, like, I was talking to someone, and they kind of became my comfort and, you know, a person that I can talk to about, you know, what I was going through. And I also had gone to a church for like maybe 1, 2, 3 times, and you know, there was a person who had invited me to that church. And so when a couple of them found out that I was seeing this person, yeah, it was not really the greatest thing for me, because a few things were said that really impacted me and really hurt me and upset me and changed my view on, you know, people in church and how I viewed church people. I just kind of always assumed that they were, you know, judgmental and mean, but it's not that at all. I've met some really amazing people from church who really are the definition of what God has called us to be. So, you know, it's not good to generalize, but at the time, that's really how I felt, and it drew me even further from the church, to be honest, because I felt very judged. I felt like I wasn't accepted, and I also felt like I wasn't deserving of God's love, you know? So after graduating from high school, I moved to another city. I was just done with everything that had happened in my life prior to that. So I wanted a fresh start, and I got it, and it was really nice moving into my own place. I had my own space, and I didn't need to argue with my mom every day. And me moving out actually brought us closer, surprisingly, because I guess we weren't in each other's space that much. It just made us miss each other. And around that same time, I really felt, at that time in my life was the time where I felt the furthest from God. I wasn't going to church. I wasn't really praying. I was just doing everything I wanted. Like, I had my friends over. We would go turn up. We would drink. Like, we were just living our best life. And around that same time, I started talking to someone that I had known for a really long time. And this was probably the most draining situation I've ever been in my life. It was very up and down. It was a hot mess. It was a hot mess. It went on for 4 years, just back and forth, like in and out of each other's life. It was just really toxic, and it just drained me. And around that same time is when I started to realize how much I was affected by not having a father in my life. I think that when you grow up without a father, it's like being thrown into the world and being told, like, figure it out, and you like have to make mistakes to figure it out. You have to, you're just thrown to the wolves, and everybody is just ready to attack, and you have no idea what to do. You don't have the tools that you need. I think mothers are amazing. They play an important role in our lives, but fathers are very, very important. They are your covering, they are your protector, they teach you how to maneuver in life. And when you don't have that, you just go through life making mistakes and just figuring it out. And that's how I feel like my life has been. So around that time that I was really going through that situation, I started to ask myself, like, why I thought it was okay to be mistreated, why I felt like it was okay to be disrespected, or why I felt it was okay to be, like, to not be loved the right way. Like, I thought all these things were normal. And when I would see people like in healthy relationships or healthy marriages, I didn't even know that was a real thing. I just always assumed that everyone's relationship was dysfunctional. But that's not true. It's just, that's what I saw growing up. That's all I saw, like, with friends, with family members. I've never actually seen someone have a stable relationship and a stable marriage. So for me, that was like a foreign thought. I never even thought that existed. So when I was in a situation that was hurting me and draining me and just taking everything from me, I really didn't think there was anything wrong with it. I just thought that this is what people go through in relationships. And when I started to realize that it wasn't normal, I had to ask myself, what is it in me that is so broken that I keep allowing this to happen, and I keep allowing my life to go in this direction? And around that time is when I really started to look for myself, to search for myself, to really look for, a path in life. I wanted to figure things out. And so this led me to a really, really dark place. Instead of seeking God, I got into New Age practices. And if you don't know what that is, it's really there's a lot that goes into New Age. I can't even just say one thing. You'd have to do your own research, but I'll tell you one specific aspect that I went to in New Age. I started to manifest things. I went really into law of attraction. I also went into, I was very much into astrology, birth charts. If you don't know what birth charts are, it's when you put your date of birth in a website, and then it gives you the planets and where they were aligned when you were born. So it's able to predict your future, which, if I'm really honest, it's divination. There's no, I don't even need to go far into that. Like, it's divination. That's just what it is. And so I was so distracted by the situation with this person and being drained and not, and being in so much pain and being hurt, that I didn't even realize that the devil was just pulling me into a really, really dark pit. And like I said, I got into New Age practices. I started looking into, like I mentioned, law of attraction. And, I was like, my angel guides are talking to me, because I kept seeing synchronicity of numbers. And I'm just going to put a quick side note. you start to see a lot of numbers like 1111, 333, 444, 555, 666, 777, like just numbers that are, you know, the same number being repeated. And I kept seeing that and I was like, what does this mean? And so at first I used to see 1111, and then when I googled it, it said your angels are guiding you to your spiritual awakening. And I was like, oh yes. I was like, I want to know what that's all about. Like, I want to be spiritually awake, you know. So the minute I started to look into that, guess what? Now I was seeing those numbers everywhere. 333, 444, 555. And they had an answer for everything. Like, every time I would Google what that means, there was an answer for it. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. And that's how I kept getting drawn into, you know, the New Age movement. And when I started looking into it, I also, you know, I was already very deep into astrology. But it also led me to start watching tarot videos. And while all this was going on, I have to mention that I was having nightmares every single night. Every single night that I went to bed, I had a nightmare, and it was the same dream over and over again. Imagine having the same dream every single day. And that dream was me in the cemetery. And other days it would be me in a cemetery around corpse. And I've always been a dreamer since I was a kid, so I knew they were significant. And I asked a family member, I'm like, I am so tired. Every night that I go to bed, I am having dreams that I'm in a cemetery or around corpse in the cemetery. And she's like, Layla, you are spiritually dead. And I asked her, I'm like, what do you mean I'm spiritually dead? And she said, you haven't given your life to God, so you're basically in this world and you're spiritually dead, and you don't have life. It is God that gives us life. We could be physically alive, but God has to give life to your spirit, and the only way he can do that is when you surrender and you give your life to him. And the fact that I was also going into watching tarot videos, and I was already into astrology, and I was into the New Age and believing all these things that angel guides and blah blah blah, I didn't know that it was demonic. I didn't know that it was part of the occult. I didn't know that it's part of witchcraft. You know, witches use the same thing. And I know that in the time that we live, it's become a trend for people to say that they're witches, or for people to say that, you know, they are channeling spirits. But what people are not understanding is that you're not channeling angels. You're not channeling, you know, God's angels. You're channeling demonic spirits, demonic entities that are coming into your life and influencing your life. You know, you should never open yourself up to anything other than God's Holy Spirit, which is the only spirit of truth. Everything else is deceptive. Everything else is just there to derail the plans that God has for your life and to pull you into this dark pit. And one thing I noticed with the devil is that everything comes at a price. You're going to lose somehow, some way. But with God, it's free. Salvation is free. He doesn't put a price on it. It's his grace. It's his love. His love is unconditional. He doesn't put a price on anything. He just says, come. That's what he says. Come, and then I will handle everything. We often, sorry to get off track, but I have to mention this. We often think that to go to God, we have to be perfect. And you're like, you know what? I'm going to get my life together and then I'm going to go to God. No, it doesn't work like that. You go to God so he can get your life together, not the other way around. And so going back to what I was saying, I get really caught up in, you know, the New Age movement and not even realizing that I've opened demonic doors to the occult, and I'm a willing participant, you know, well, not willing, but still, like, I was in it. And like I said, I was having nightmares, I was having sleep paralysis, and mind you, like, I would still pray around this time. And it's just really crazy to think now, because, you know, the word of God tells us that you can't have one foot in and have one foot out. Like, you have to pick. It is either God or Satan. Like, there's really no in between. We spend all our lives trying to find the in between, the maybe I can do this and not do that, but there is no in between. It is good or evil. There's really no in between. So anyways, going back to the story, as I'm going through this journey where I'm in this, I'm in these new age practices, I'm not realizing that I am heavily like being attacked. I'm going through spiritual warfare, and I am like attacked on all sides, but I can't see it because it's, once again, it's not visible, right? It's mostly demonic forces that you cannot see with your physical eyes, but you feel it because when you go to bed, you can't really sleep. You have sleep paralysis, or you'll be in your room and not really feel like you're alone. So there's just the sense of fear that you can't shake off. So all those things are just signs that there is like a demonic influence or a demonic entity around you. Anyways, going back to what I was saying, around that same time, I started to really like feel very depressed, and I start to feel like I shouldn't be here. Like, I'm not supposed to be on this planet. Like, what's the point of being here? Like, it's just everything is the same. And I start to have all these thoughts, and anyone that knows me knows like that that is far from who I am. I'm very bubbly, I'm optimistic, I'm always looking forward to the future, and I had lost all of that. I was just a sad person now, and I wanted to stay in my room. Sometimes I could be in a room with no lights all day, and that was not me at all. And I have to say that the devil is a liar. You're gonna hear all these thoughts, and sometimes you think they're your own thoughts, but you don't realize that it's a portal that you opened, and now spirits and demonic forces have influence to plant seeds in your mind that aren't really from you, and you gotta battle that. So around that same time, I just got to a point where I was like, I'm really tired of this, and I want to change my life. One night I went to bed, and I just started praying in my heart, and I was crying, and I was like, God, like, if there's ever been a time that I need you to step in, it's now. If there's ever been a time where I need you to help me, it's now. And I went to bed. The next morning, it really felt like someone had, when you charge a phone and the battery is completely full, that's how I felt. I felt the presence of God in that room with me that day, and I was overwhelmed by the amount of love that God had for me, or God has for us. And I just started to cry, and I just started asking for forgiveness. I'm like, forgive me for not doing this your way, because your way is the best way, because you created me and you know what's best for me. And I'm sorry that I doubted that. I'm sorry that I thought that I could do it better than you, who could see my future. Oh, humans, we are so complicated. But I just felt so loved in that moment. And if, for people who are believers, when you pray or when you're worshiping and you feel the presence of the Holy Spirit, sometimes the love is so overwhelming that you just start to like cry and just pour your heart, because it's just that overwhelming. It's just the most amazing feeling. And that day I knew that I didn't want to look back. I wanted to change my life. I wanted to live my life for God, and wherever He will call me, I will go with Him. And I was just ready to take that journey. And I felt like that day He was looking at me and He was saying, I heard you, and I'm here with you, and everything is gonna be okay. And 2 years later, I'm here, and I am sharing my testimony and telling you how amazing God is, and He really is. And my life didn't completely change right after that. I had a lot to deal with. Sorry, my camera died, but like I was saying, my life didn't change right away. I had a lot of things that I needed to work on. There were a lot of things that God was convicting me about that I needed to change in my life. A lot of people that God wanted me to forgive, including my father. Another thing that God convicted me of was that I needed to honor my mother, that I didn't treat her with the respect that she deserved, that I wasn't treating her as a mother, and that no matter what the age difference is, a parent is still a parent, and as a child you have to know your place. And if there's something I never knew, was my place. And God really convicted me of that. God convicted me of pride. I was a very, very prideful person. I was very, very stubborn. And even now, there are little things that happen, and I'm trying to be stubborn, and God just softens my heart. He's like, Layla, no, you can do better than that. And that has been the most beautiful part of this journey. It's not what you see on TV or on YouTube or Instagram, social media, with mega churches where they make you believe that once you're saved, the birds start to sing and there are flowers everywhere, butterflies. That's not how it is. When you are saved, that is the beginning of the process. Now God has to remove things, and it is an ugly process, because God will bring to the surface things that you do not want to face. Things you want to forget, your traumas, things that broke your heart. He will bring it, and he will be like, give that to me. Let's talk about it. Forgive this person. That has been the most beautiful part of this journey. And even now, I'm still a human being. No one's perfect. We all have our flaws. But let's say I get into a situation with someone and they upset me. Sometimes I want to, get angry or respond, clap back. But that little voice of the Holy Spirit just convicts me right away and is like, Layla, it's not worth it. It's not worth opening that door. Don't open that door of anger. Don't do it. And I just calm down right away. So what I really want you to take from this is that God is such a loving God. I used to think that God is about to send fire and burn me up right now, he just hates me, and I'm the worst person in the world, and I don't deserve to even call on the name of God. But that is a lie. Before everything, God is love, and his love is unconditional, and there is nothing we can ever do to buy him or buy his love. It's just given freely. It's through grace that we get to wake up every morning. And more than ever, I recently realized that we don't have forever. We don't. And what we do here matters, and how we love people matters, and how we treat each other matters. And one of the things that the enemy will do is keep us silent, because if I don't tell you that I've been through that too, then you think you've been through that by yourself, and you are sad in your room by yourself, and everybody else looks good on Instagram, but you don't know what they go through in their personal life. So live in truth, but most importantly, live with God, because Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but through me. I love you guys, and I hope this blessed you. And if God convicts me of it, I will make more videos about different things, depending on the direction he wants me to take. God bless.